Now then, another fix-o-thon about to start. A couple of days ago I was off working up the top end of the county and parked up, everything was fine. A couple of hours later we were going to go off to the woods to finish what we were doing and finish the assessment, and got in the car, pulled out, and I heard this ping bong bing bong sort of noise from this front end. Now I thought, we've got a broken spring, but I hadn't hit any big potholes or anything, so I just, what on earth's going on? Anyway, you've got to continue with the work in front of you, do the job that's in front of you. And on the way home I ordered a new spring from the auto factors. I got home, jacked this up with the big trolley jack, and of course the suspension then dropped all the way down, and you could see there were two halves of the spring split, broken in the middle, not at the end. And I was only assuming that I've been driving around with this broken spring locked together, and just the means of parking up on that particular day meant that they just went like that, and this bottom half went up and started scraping on the outside of the spring retaining cup or whatever's there. But we'll see anyway. If it's a clean shiny brake, then we'll know that that theory is right out the window, but I'm assuming that that's what's happened. Anyway, the weather has been a bit nasty, and for the rest of the week it's going to be very unpleasant, so I thought I'd better do this on the only day where there's a bit of sun. You know, the sun has been a fully paid up member of the Cartoon Workers Art Pool. And following the advice of Flann O'Brien, who said it is important to do what is necessary before it becomes essential and unavoidable. So now I know I got a broken spring. It's not going to get any better, and it could get worse, and you know, it could break a piece off, and it could shoot through the tyre and all sorts of stuff. So let's crack on. So can you see there that broken end of a spring, and it looks quite rusty, but we'll give it a better inspection later. We're on wobbly cam here at the moment. So that is the bottom coil of the top half, and what I did was, when I jacked it up and all this was loose, I was able to put the top coil over the top of the broken bit, so it sat sort of within the seat, and it didn't then scrape on the bodywork. Can you see that rusty bit there? That's just that long line in the centre of the screen. That's where it was scraping as I was steering, so I'll need to put a gob of paint on that to stop that getting worse. And now the thing to do is we've got to get the strut out, so we'll crack on with that. Now then, this is all a bit, I've sprayed some of this with oil over the last couple of years that I've had this, but it's all still pretty corroded. We've got a brake line here that goes to a bracket, and that bracket is part of the strut, and we've got to take the strut off. So that has got to come undone somehow. And then we've got the ABS cable here, which again needs to be unclipped, and it's clipped in various places. Then these two big nuts need undoing, and the track rod end removing. Right, so all that's going to be really quite fiddly and messy and a bit horrible, I suspect. And from a preliminary try, this is going to be a right pain in the neck. I've already given it a squirt. We're running out of air on this. So let's just give it a go. I might get in the way, all sorts of things. So I need to support this bracket somehow. Let's get a set of vice grips, I think. Might just do the job. Okay, so just before we start again, it's on the jack, but there's these big blocks of timber there supporting everything. I prefer big blocks of timber to axle stands. There's more to them. Right. Cool. Right, I need to support that. There we go. It's going. Perfect. So that worked. Good. Excellent. Can we see all right? Yes. And we're using, those of you who've been watching other videos will know that I changed the big LED floodlight into a work light, and we're using that, and it's behaving wonderfully. And if I remember, I'll put a link just up there somewhere. So, right, ABS cable's off. Right. Let's give that a good wire brushing. You've got to remember, this is 2003. So, this hasn't been touched since then, so what's the chances of this coming out? About 0, one imagines. I think I'm just going to give that a bit of a tap first. Again, when you're doing these cars, if you spray the bottom with oil twice a year, it does help things to come apart and it stops the rot, but you've got to do it. Yeah, the hurly-burly of life and all that sort of stuff. That's really dinky little thing. I'll try a set of blunt side cutters. Wow, that's impressive. Can you see that? Hopefully you can, or maybe my hand was in the way. Let's zoom in. That's amazing. I would never have thought that would have come out. So maybe the oil that I've been spraying around did get into that. I can't think of any other reason why it would come apart. So now, and I've wire brushed all that lot, now we've got to undo that. Let's zoom out a bit. Is it a 19mm? No, it's not. Is it a 17mm? Yes, it is. Wow. Again, I don't need to say what I attribute that to. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. That's been there for, I'm assuming, that's been there for 15 years. And this has got 130,000 on it. So now we need to split that. So time for a big hammer, and we've got to spin the whole wheel. So just move my light out the way. Let's just put that nut back on there, just in case. I really can't get to the other. There we go. That's gone. Brilliant. Okay. When I undo these two, this is want to drop this way. So we'll need to have something to support that. So we want a block, I think. So I've got a block of timber here with an extra piece on. And now we need to undo those. So I'll move you round so I don't get in the way. Right. What do you reckon? Will they come undone? Let's give her a go. Cool. Right, the other side's moving. 19mm. Well, that looks like it's moving. Yeah. Okay, so we've got all those out, now we've got to do that one. There we go. I think there's a breaker bar first. Cool. That looks pretty good. And I'm assuming that there's no, these are not cam bolts. But before I move anything, I will just check, but I don't think so. It's too early for a year for there to be cam bolts. And the holes are round, so they're not cam bolts. That don't want to go. So they're just parallel bolts. I will put a bit of copper slip all over these before I put them back in. You never know, I might be back here. Okay, so we need to just loosen this up. There we go. And it's on the block. And I don't want to put any weight onto this guard. That's why I've got this extra bit there. So I think the next thing to do before I break that free, no, I'll break that free first. So we need a bit of a lever. Okay, there we go. Everything's disconnected. There are 3 nuts on some studs. Hang on, we can't do it that way. So here's the strut tower. There are three nuts here. 1, 2, 3. And I'm just going to undo those, or should we say I've already loosened these off, and I actually did it before I undid everything below. Didn't undo them a lot, but just enough. So just undo these, and I'm going to remove the one that's slightly hampered. And then put your arm round and just support the strut as I remove the last few turns. Let's just lift this out somehow. There we go. Contact. So now we can inspect the end of that spring. And it's not a new, there's a slight new break there on that end. That's been cracked for a long time, and then it just went on that last bit. Unless it was rubbing there, it's difficult to tell. So it sort of looks like, I don't know, it's been cracked for quite a while. So you've got to undo this nut and take this lot off. Yeah. And then I can get the new spring, compress it up, and apparently that's the dangerous bit. But they've got 3 spring compressors, and we'll work that one out. But undoing that first, I think there's a hex Allen key fitting in the top there, so we'll undo that. So we got a hex in there, an Allen key, and that's working well. I did clean this up and spray it, and when I first got this car a couple of years ago, I did coat everything round here, all the threads, with oil, and it's obviously soaked through over time. They were a bit rusty, you see. I thought, no, we'll put some oil on that, because you never know. And of course, yeah, there's a saying round here in Lincolnshire, most parts of the UK you drive on the left, other parts of the world you drive on the right, but in Lincolnshire you drive on what's left, because the roads are appalling. So we'll just undo this, take this lot apart. So there we go. So what have we got here? We've got the top and the bearings. It don't feel too bad. And then another bit of the bearing and the top plate. Okay, that's grand. So we just sort of clean out in there. Doesn't look too bad actually. Get rid of all this muck and then grab the new spring. So let's just see how we get on with this. These are some spring clamps that I inherited. I'm not sure that they're ideal. These ones got more of a are they the right size? No, they're not. That's unfortunate, because they've got to be the right size for the springs that you're going to compress. I'd like to lift there, but I think that will then get in the way. And if I put a third one in, that's going to get in the way even more, because it will go from there to there and it will be on that coil there, which then would stop the top plate fitting. Now I know these are dangerous, so you don't need to tell me. So they need to be opposite each other. And square to the spring, not along the line, because then they will just slip. So you need to be square to the spring. That looks about right. And I was thinking about putting a ratchet strap around these, but I'll put a bit of tension on first. But first we need to find a spanner that will fit those. And because I inherited these, I haven't got a clue what it is. I suspect they're Imperial. But that's a 20mm. Right. So that's the ratchet strap round there, just to help for these not to come off. Let's just see. Can't see in the camera. Let's just see how this fits. Right, the ratchet strap's in the way. Boring. So, good idea, but no thank you. Okay, and that doesn't seem to be handed at all. Yes, it does. That's the end of the spring. There's one end there and one end there, so that's definitely where the end of the spring went. There's a recess there, although it looks mighty odd. So before I put that that nut on, let's put some copper slip on that threads there. Just as a anti-seize. I'm not sure how this, or maybe you just tighten it up till it's sort of tight. Oh yeah, there you go. That'll do. Don't want it too tight. Then we can just slacken these off. What spanner did we use? The 20mm, wasn't it? Bit tricky. That one, this one could have been a bit further round that way, but then this one couldn't come round much further because of that, the top. So I think we've probably got it at about the right position. Now lots of people go on about these being dangerous. I sort of can see why, if you're rushing it, not in the ideal conditions, and maybe tighten one side up more than the other so it all goes off at an angle. But having seen that, maybe a band round the outside, but that ratchet strap didn't work. I suppose if you put a piece of wood there, and the ratchet strap went round it, then it wouldn't get in the way. Interesting. I've never done this before, so it's literally make it up as you go along, having watched a couple of YouTube videos and what have you. I'm assuming I put it all together right. If I haven't, somebody's going to be going, "Oi!" battering on the screen, and the keyboard warriors will be out going, "Oh, that ain't natural, you can't do that." Well, maybe I can't. Maybe the thought police will come and get me. There we go. Let's see how it goes back together. But first I want to put a daub of paint just up where it was scraping on the body, the end of that spring. You know, and that's just an ideal place for rock to start. So I'll just put some paint there. You don't need to see me doing that. So there we go. Those bolts are back in. Took a little bit of jiggling to get the first one in. Had to have a what did I use? A pair of snide nose pliers, and just to wiggle it and then get the bolt through, get them to line up. Once the top one was in, the bottom one was easier. Plenty of copper slip on everything. The threads on the track rod end, I gave those a really good wire brushing up. Then tapped this down to try and lock it in place. Copper slip, put that in there, and the tab on this ABS wire, because it had broken, so I put a wire tie around that. And now all we're looking for is a split pin, or I think in other parts of the world they use them a cotter pin. You call them cotter pins. So we put that in there. That's about the right size. I can't believe that that other one came out. It was just amazing. I've had so many times stuff like that, and it snaps off, and it's halfway, and all sorts of things, and it just makes the whole job very difficult. That's too tight. That'll have to be the one. Okay, so I'll do that. The top 3 nuts are on the studs. That's all back together. I've made sure that the whole thing spins reasonably well on that top bearing. It won't now, obviously, because it's attached to the steering rack. So it looks like everything's back together. I just need to go around and check 1 or 2 things just to make sure, and then wheel on and away we go. I'll have a look at the brake pads whilst we're here, and the condition of the rotors and all that sort of thing. So so there you are. It's when you watch a couple of YouTube videos about this sort of thing, it's supposed to be really scary, but I think just take your time. Yeah, don't rush. Make sure that where are they? These are square to the spring, not in line with the strut, but square to the spring, and wind them down slowly, alternately, so you keep an even pressure on there. As you saw, it seemed to be fine. I think if you were rushing and tired and all those sorts of things, and maybe bad weather, and you know you've only got an hour to do this before you've got to take the kids to school or all that sort of thing, then it's not a good time. Yeah, allow plenty of time, even though this has taken me, I would say, probably with all the messing around and doing the camera work and wandering off to get tools and all those sorts of things, because as I say, I haven't done this before. I'm thinking this will have taken me about an hour and a half. Catch up with you soon.